Today I'm joined by Kate Santangelo, the powerhouse mompreneur behind the Monmouth Moms, part of the Local Moms Network, a platform built entirely for moms by moms. It's a lifeline for local moms looking to feel connected, supported, and part of something bigger. If you're new to the area, a mom searching for community, or thinking about launching your own thing, this conversation will leave you inspired and ready to plug in. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
So you spent nearly a decade in wholesale wine sales before launching Monmouth Moms. What sparked that idea, and what was the moment that you knew this was your next career move?
I'm not sure if it was a specific, well, I remember the moment where I found the opportunity. So let's start there. I had spent over a decade, selling wine and then also kind of in the hospitality industry, so to speak. Was a little burnt out from that. I'd kind of made the jump into the sales world because I was a young single mom at the time, and it was a way for me to kind of work within that industry but still be home in the evenings, and kind of it was more like mom friendly, and definitely probably much more I guess lucrative than the restaurant industry, because it can be like a little different depending on the role that you have and all that. So I'd spent years climbing that corporate ladder. And when I entered the industry, it was a little bit of a different economy. The climate of that industry specifically was different. It was definitely beginning to change because it was very male dominated. So you did see a lot more female women in the industry. With that said, with the influx of people buying their wine online and a lot of different like economical factors, margins were razor thin, and the salespeople were really like I'd say the most, affected are regional salespeople. In order to like make a certain salary, you have to take on more territory and take on more responsibility, which, I never really was opposed to, but it was more that I was remarried at the time. My daughter was 3, and I felt like I was looking for an opportunity, almost kind of, I made that decision, like, kind of in the back of my head. It wasn't like one specific thing, but, I was always on the road. I was usually like 45,000 miles on my car a year.
Gosh.
I know my car, it was like completely upside down on my loans, like all the time, just because like 3 years in, it would be like 150,000 miles on my car, and I'd still owe so much on it. So, I was kind of looking for another opportunity. I didn't really even know what that was. But I knew that, if I wanted to climb that corporate ladder, it was really going to entail a lot more travel. And that wasn't something that, I was willing to do in order to, not spend time with my kids, because I love being a mom. So, I found this opportunity actually in, a parent group on Facebook. And, this is 7 years ago, like 7.5 years ago. And back then, Instagram was still very much in its infancy. It's not what it is today. But I saw one of the partners of the Local Moms Network had kind of posted that they were looking for someone to open their own platform in Monmouth County. And at the time, I was like, oh, that is so interesting. And like, I would know exactly how to do that. And I thought that I was going to be one of many moms who were applying for the job, applying for the opportunity, because essentially it's kind of like starting, very similar to real estate, where you're like starting your own business and in a community, your own boss, right? And I was the only one. So
really, that's interesting.
I know. I ran with it. I initially had a partner, like a friend of mine, who we were going to partner on the idea, and that's kind of how it all started. So yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So I would assume that moving to a new area as a mom could feel sort of isolating. What advice do you have for moms looking to build their support system here in Monmouth County?
I would say, every mom is different. And, I think moms kind of get lumped into like one, like they only have like one, personality trait, or we're all kind of the same, but we're just humans, right? So like, for me, when I had my kids when I was little, when they were little, they, I didn't really love like the mommy and me stuff. It was never my wheelhouse. My mom at this, she had my daughter the first year that, when I went back to work before, like I put her in daycare, and she would be like
It's
the
a grandma
grandma,
in
the
me.
mommy.
Yeah.
She loved
Yeah.
all that stuff. Like that was her. And there's a lot of moms that love it. So I think you really just kind of have to like know yourself. And, if you are the person that is like a joiner, so to speak,
Mhm.
I am like I think like introverted extrovert. Like I like being social to a degree,
Right.
but then like, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to go home now. So I'd say, kind of find your people, but I know, when you move to an area, it does take time. It takes putting yourself out there, going to things, maybe, go to local events that are interesting to you. There's a lot of coffee houses. I know Coffee Corral in Red Bank right now is starting to do mommy and me meetups. That would probably be more my jam than like something that was a little bit more like geared just towards the kids. What is nice about the events that we host at Bell Works a couple times a year, our festivals, is that I really curated them with mom in mind. We go to a lot of things for our kids, and a lot of them it's like, yeah, like, you bring, I was always into the parks, with my kids. I brought them to every park you can think of. It's free, it's great, you
Sure.
get outside, it's
Energy
exercise.
is exerted.
Exactly. And you like being there, but you don't like how many times you want to see your kid go down the slide. Like you're going to be
Right.
actually honest about it. Like not too many. So you get bored after a while, right? So I really try to curate the events that they have. Like it's family friendly. And I mean that, right? That there's, fun boutiques or maybe some med spas there for the moms or coffee, or, there's a mimosa bar that we do,
Oh, that's so
or,
cute.
but then there's a whole indoor kid zone, and it really does like kind of appeal to everyone. And those are really key for making those connections and meeting other people. And, just getting outside and getting to know your community.
So if a mom were to move here in
Mhm.
Monmouth County, where would you say here's the first place that you should consider or look at, to get involved?
Well, where? I think Bell Works is definitely good for
Yeah.
that because, as it's grown like over the years, it's a great, especially in the winter, it's a good spot to
Right.
like really check out, let the kids run around. I wish it was around when my kids were little because they can literally like just run the turf and, get
Yes.
their energy out, and you can grab a coffee and stuff. So that's a good spot. I'm a huge advocate for Monmouth County Park System.
Mhm.
I grew up in Monmouth County. I grew up in Hazlitt, and my parents are divorced. My dad, when I was growing up, he mostly lived in Mercer County. And then when I was 18, he bought a house in Burlington County. So he's been there for about 22 years, not to age myself. But it's actually really eye opening how lucky we are that we have the park system here, because it's not the case in other counties and other,
Right.
in other parts of, the country. It's really unique. Just the way that it's run, all the vast programs that they offer, the summer camps, which are not only economical but also just
Sure.
incredibly valuable for the kids. There's so much to do: hiking, bike trails, tons of playgrounds. There's literally a playground on the beach in Long Branch, and
I know.
Seven Presidents, and
Seabright too, right?
sorry, yeah,
Seabright too?
Seabright
Yeah.
too. Well, Seabright I think is part of like Seabright
Oh,
Township.
got it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the Monmouth County Park System, and then the golf system that they
Mhm.
have is just spectacular. So I would absolutely start there. Just because I love being outdoors. So that's something that is good. And then in the winter, it kind of really depends on like I guess what you're into. But
Sure.
Freehold Mall is also a good spot too.
That's true
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So you've built your
Mhm.
business that empowers moms to work from home and around their kids' schedules. So, what are some misconceptions about work-life balance that you've learned firsthand?
That there is no balance.
You can't try to achieve it.
Yeah, someone coined the term. I just hosted a summit last week which has actually become a vertical of our business called Pillar, and we had all kinds of incredible moms come speak about just that, like work-life balance, or the kind of the misconception
Mm,
of that. And it's more about work-life harmony, and that
like that term.
yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of finding a role for you that works for you and your family. When I first started this, it was pretty cool because it wasn't as big as it is now, so there wasn't as much to manage, and it was growing and it was fun. But I was definitely like much more available
Mhm.
to be able to like pick my daughter up from school, and I still do, but it's more like I'm flying by the seat of my pants just because the business has grown, which I'm grateful for. But the problem with, I think, working from home is that, your family thinks that you're available
Right.
and you're literally, you're trying to work. So it's like, I'm working right now. I'm not ignoring you, so it's kind of like that
Exactly.
juggling act of just constantly like trying to, find the time to do that, but then also not get distracted by the dogs having to go out or
Right.
throw laundry in. Either is tough, but also commuting sucks too. So it's like,
Pick your
pick your poison. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So, so what advice would you give to a mom who has an idea but feels overwhelmed by the thought of having to start her own business?
I would say, and I read a lot. My biggest passion is reading about moms in business, women in business in general. It's fascinating to me. I used to take out library books like when I was 22 and read about like women, like it wasn't like how it is now. There was obviously no Amazon that had started their own businesses. And so there's all kinds of terms I've heard and quotes, from really like successful moms. And one of them is always that sticks out to me is always like, if you have an idea, run with it. And there are all kinds of different ways to say that.
Right.
But I think they say like, I don't know if it's correct, but like 80% of ideas like never come to fruition, right? And most of that is fear.
Sure.
Like fear, it's just kind of that driving force that you you don't have that confidence within yourself. I can only speak to like my experience, and also, so many of the moms that I've worked with in our community who are just incredible, running organizations, having their own businesses. If you have an idea and you really know how to execute, right? Because that's the difference. It's like, that's a good idea. I wish I invented that. Like, okay, like know
Why didn't you,
thyself, right? But like, know thyself. Like, yes, I have an idea, but like, do you have the capacity, the bandwidth, the know-how, the grit, the work ethic to really like bring it from, across
Right.
the finish line? Then please do it. Please do it, because it's so worth it. It's and that belief system is really the thing that is going to bring you to where you need to go. In my 20s, I always used to say, I want to own a restaurant, or I want to have my own business or whatever, but I would really just say it. And I like to hear myself say it, but my husband, like in my 30s, I remember he called me out on it, and not to be, he's just like, he's the kind of guy that's very candid, doesn't like hold back. And he wasn't trying to be mean, but what he was saying was like, stop saying it. And
just do it.
And
if you're going to do
exactly,
it,
right?
Yes.
Stop talking about it. So that's the biggest piece. But I didn't really have that belief system. It took me a while to really kind of like say like, no, why not you?
Right.
Right. And why not, give it a chance. And, I continue to learn that lesson, year over year, every event that we host, every stepping stone that I take, everything that I do to continue to, provide value to the moms of our platform. And then also now with Pillar is that, you got to take a risk. But even if it doesn't work out 100%, like at least you tried,
Sure.
and like you wouldn't know if you didn't. So I'd say all of that, if that answers any of what you just asked me.
Yes, it does. So, since 2018, how have you seen the needs of Monmouth County moms change, and how has the Monmouth Moms adapted to that?
I wouldn't say moms' needs have ever changed.
Okay.
I think that artists' needs for since, thousands of years have probably always been the same. I think culturally, things shift, right? Times change. What I will say is that we're much more vocal about what we need now. And that there's, thankfully, there's people talk a lot about the downside of social media, but there's a lot of upside too. And I think one of those things is providing awareness, right? So moms that maybe, didn't feel comfortable talking about postpartum depression or perimenopause or just all the different kind of they call it the mental load, right, of parenting, and what that does to moms, right? It's a lot. And I think that the social media has kind of opened the gateway to be able to kind of talk about that, and then find the resources to be able to kind of grant yourself self-care, the ability to really, say like, yes, like I need help, and be able to kind of take that help without feeling bad. We were raised with a generation of moms who it was just, you didn't talk about it. Like you didn't talk about it. And that was just part of being a mom. Like you got to just kind of like grunt and bear it. And then I'd say, for having two kids in two different generations, right? Where I guess, I don't know what generation my daughter is, but my son's Gen Z, right? I'm like an elder millennial. My son's Gen Z. So I kind of parented in like that generation. And then my daughter's, which is it's vastly different, right? The parenting is different, gentle parenting. Like I've seen a lot of different cycles of motherhood, so to speak. The biggest thing, I guess, that not so much that we had to adapt to, but I think it's really just that we have the pleasure of being able to bring to light different resources in the community that benefit moms, groups that provide mental awareness, mental support, right? Or postpartum groups, Mommy and Me, all kinds of different things that are available for moms. And then I also have like a great partnership with Hackensack Meridian Children's Health, and they do so much for the community. And we really do our best to try to get it out there as much as we can, because there's lots and lots of different resources and so much emerging. Like it's just kind of rapidly changing, but in a good way, to be able to kind of, bridge that gap and help moms get what they need.
And to lean on each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of which, many people, of course, moms look to find their people, their tribe, their support system. So if they're new to town or new to being a mom, that could sometimes be a little bit tough. So what does Monmouth Moms do in playing a role to help newcomers, whether it be someone new to the area or a new mom, feel welcome?
We really strive to be a resource platform for busy parents, really, in Monmouth County. We're not a group, and we do in-person events, but they are kind of on the larger scale. We do our best to really kind of have like a comprehensive overview of everything that is vetted within the community. If you go on our website, you can find all kinds of different local events and activities happening in the area that's updated weekly, if not daily. Then we also have a whole resource section of businesses, activities, resources within the community that families need. The biggest difference or the biggest, I guess, takeaway that, I think all moms should know about Monmouth Moms is that we focus on mom, right? We don't focus specifically on little kids. So we're really trying to capture the whole cycle of motherhood. I think that's been kind of, really nice for me because I have a lot of different perspectives. I know what it's like to have a colicky kid who's, screaming his head off and you are just like 10 hours in your apartment, like, oh my God, and like afraid to ask for help and stuff like that. And I also know what it's like to, go through IEP, issues and, having a child who is, not great at test taking. I also know what it's like to, on the flip side to, have someone that, maybe needs a different school and kind of, what that looks like if you're looking at different private schools and stuff. So, we really try to highlight a lot of the different schools that are in the area. Park systems, healthcare is a big one, home renovation, right? So, if you're moving, if different contractors, I'm sure you could speak to that because that industry, is tough. If you're doing anything with your house, like who do you use, right? Who has a good reputation. So you can really look to us. We do our best. So we're not going to know every single thing about every business and, exactly what happened. But, you can always trust the restaurant section with me because I came from hospitality. So if it's on there, like, I think it's pretty good.
That's great. And I'm a foodie, so that works out well.
Yeah.
Being that you know what's best in the area, right? As someone who curates the best of Monmouth County, what are a few of the hidden gems that you love? Places new moms or really anyone should consider visiting or, taking part in?
Okay. I'll go back to the park system. We already talked about that. I do love that. So that would probably be number one. Restaurants. Oh, I asked this on my podcast too, and I should probably, that's like one of the questions I always ask my guests. And I should know. I love food and it's really hard. So me, I love. What else? I love the Barrel and Roost. I actually worked there like when it was Nicholas, like 20 years ago.
Oh, how funny.
Briefly, very briefly.
We had Nicholas on here last time.
Okay.
Yes.
What else? I love Salt Creek. I actually had my high school graduation party there.
Oh,
My brother got married there. It's like it's
it's
always
a
like
beautiful setting.
it's reliable. Like
Yes.
it's good. Like I've never had a bad meal there,
Right.
and my family, my daughter loves it. You know what I've been loving lately? River Point Inn.
Oh, so good.
And it's
So
so
good.
beautiful. I want to live there.
Yes.
I want my house to
It's
look like
so
that.
pretty. I know. The vibes are awesome there.
Yeah. In the summer, we love Seagirt. I try not to talk too much about it because I am like a gatekeep, like the beach, because it doesn't
You're
get too crowded.
releasing your hidden gem, and now
Yeah.
everyone starts to go
Yeah.
there.
But like our perfect beach day is Seagirt, and then we'll like get we'll go on the grill at Parker House and get a drink,
Oh, nice.
and then stop at Hoffman's on the way home, which is like the best ice
Love
cream ever.
Hoffman's.
So that's like the best for us. You know, I love Red Bank. My
Mhm.
office is in Red Bank. When I was growing up, my grandparents lived there. I love just like being able to walk downtown, looking at possibly hosting an event there later this year. Like just love the charm of the
Yeah.
town. Spring Lake is another one that's just like
So many pretty towns around here.
Yeah.
Ocean Grove.
Ocean Grove. I don't get there often. I got to get there this summer.
Mhm.
And Spring Lake too. Like every time I go, I'm like, I got to come here more, but it's just time. So
It's beautiful there.
yeah.
So, what's next for Monmouth Moms? Are there any exciting upcoming projects or events or anything you'd like to share?
We have our annual Spring Festival, which is on Sunday, May 4th. So that is a day filled with, usually I have about 80 to 100 vendors. We have an outdoor touch-a-truck, and we've also recently added like inflatables, so all kinds of bounce houses and
How
slides
fun.
and all that.
For the adults or for the kids?
I think adults did get on that last time. I don't know. We'll have food trucks this time, which we finally were allowed to add. Bellworks granted me a few fun food trucks to.
That's awesome.
And then inside we have a indoor kid zone, obviously all, on the, what they call the block, right? The block.
Yes.
The block, with all the retailers that are
Mhm.
open and the restaurants. And then we also do photos with mom for Mother's Day, 'cause it's like a week before Mother's
Oh,
Day.
how nice.
And we're doing like a new mom and baby like expo area too this time. So it's a big event.
Very cool.
So definitely come to that. And then later in the year, we do our Fall Fest, which is very similar, just has more of like a Halloween fall theme. And then I'm considering doing something for back to school, but I can't speak to it yet.
Okay. We'll have to stay tuned then.
That and then also I mentioned Christmas, but yeah, just I'm scouting like new spaces just to switch it up a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how does one find you if, they're looking to learn more about your events or your resources? What's the best place to reach you?
So I would visit the monmouthmoms.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can kind of stay in the know there. We will send out a monthly newsletter and different emails throughout the week about like events and activities that are happening and different resources, and then obviously some information about our partners. And then on Instagram is a great way because we're always spreading the word on there. It's the Monmouth Moms. We have a podcast too, so you can tune in there, on YouTube, and I think all the different streaming apps. And what am I forgetting? And then if you're a mom in business or a working mom and are seeking just information resources, we have our newest venture, which is Meet Pillar. So you can follow us at Meet Pillar, and we just finished up our 2 summits this spring, but are planning a lot with that, so you can follow along there as well.
Tell me more about Meet Pillar.
Yeah. So Pillar was born out of kind of almost, I guess, about a year and a half ago. My assistant and I were brainstorming about hosting some type of like networking event. And I just kind of felt like there's so many of them and I didn't want to do another one. But I also get to meet so many incredible women in business in the area. And I wanted to have an event where like we can all connect, but in a way that was maybe a little bit more unique and different. Summits, I guess, were kind of like still emerging at the time, and now you're still starting to see more and more of them. But last year we hosted our first summit, which was called the Monmouth Moms Summit, and we had a keynote speaker, a couple breakouts. I'm sorry, actually about like 12 different breakout sessions, 2 panels filled with women from all walks of life. So moms in corporate roles, business owners, all kind of who had maybe found success in some capacity who came together for the day. And we just talked about like, how did you get to where you are? How do you manage your day? How do you find that work life, that balance that we don't really like to say anymore, but, to really like
The
kind of,
harmony.
yeah, like to just talk about like how you're all getting it done. Because one thing we also do with Monmouth Moms is, from the beginning is our Meet a Mom interview.
Mm.
And the interview, talks about the mom sometimes behind the business, behind the organization. And it's really popular. And it's popular because it's like, we're all like, not drowning, but kind of drowning. Right. And like, it's so fascinating to me. And I think so many other moms, like, how does she get it all done? Because she
Mhm.
looks so together, and it's like,
Especially on social
oh,
media, right?
totally. Oh my
'Cause we only
gosh.
show the good parts.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So, so this was kind of almost like a Meet a Mom in real life where
Mm.
we're sharing our experiences, we're being vulnerable, we're talking about all kinds of different things. So the sessions allowed for every mom. If you're a mom in business and you're trying to grow your business, if you're a mom in the corporate world and you're trying to climb that corporate ladder, negotiating, salary, or maybe you want to shift right in your career. Maybe you're a mom that stayed home for 10 years
Mm.
and you need you're in a crappy relationship and you need to go back to work. Maybe your kids are older and you want to go back to work, right? Maybe you want to change completely. So the idea behind it is really to kind of like inspire you
Mhm.
to go listen to other moms. Maybe you'll be inspired by one of our keynotes. Maybe you'll we have like a whole resource vendor space with all kinds of different, mostly local companies that we're hiring that like offer different like the NJEDA came and they offer like grant programs for small
Oh, wow.
businesses. The UCEDC, and don't even ask me what that stands for because I have no idea. But I know they also do like similar things
Yes.
for people in New Jersey, and that's really just it. It's kind of like bringing everything together, in a different capacity, different resources that are available to moms. Meal delivery services.
Mm.
Eat Clean Bro is our lunch sponsor, so it's like a perfect
Oh,
win
wow.
for moms because
Yes.
they have good nutritious food that's clean and you get it delivered to your house. Like you can't ask for more than that. So
So I
so
actually have a question about this. As someone who is not a mom,
yeah.
your event sounds so, inspirational and fun. And do you have to necessarily
No.
be a mom to attend?
Yeah, so I noticed this year. So we on the heels of the summit last year, I partnered with the owner of the Local Moms Network, Layla Luzuski, and created a vertical of the Local Moms Network called Pillar. So we basically took what we did last year and brought Pillar again back to Beltworks in New Jersey. It's open to to all moms and women. We had a lot of women
Dog
come.
mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. Dog. Yeah,
Dog
totally.
mom. Different,
And
but
right. No, my dogs are a pain in the butt. Like they're very much like my kids. And then we also did it in Connecticut, like a couple weeks ago. So the idea behind it is to kind of host these events, hopefully throughout the country to help moms in different communities
that's wonderful.
yeah. So
Love that.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming here and talking about this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. That's a wrap for this episode of All Things Monmouth County and Real Estate. Thanks for tuning in and being part of our community. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Have questions or a topic you'd love to hear about? Reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and enjoy everything Monmouth County has to offer.